Hello and welcome back to the Wasteland, everybody. Welcome back to Fallout, where today we're going to be taking a look at some hot takes in Fallout. Fallout 4's base building is a fun mechanic. I think they could have done more with it, but even in its vanilla state, I can still get lost in it for hours. Fallout 4's base building mechanic was a very hit or miss thing at times for a lot of players, because it could be very fun to actually be building up your own base. It could also be more fun if they had let, the people in the town actually build up the base too. There are some mods that allow you to do that, so that's kind of cool. And it did kind of serve a purpose. I think it was a cool addition to the game. The main problem I had with base building in Fallout 4 was just that it seemed to be where a large portion of the effort went to, and for the most part, the base building felt kind of unrewarding for me. Just because, there's a lot of other games that I could play that allows me to build much more complex bases or have more, survival aspects to it. So I don't really care for the base building all that much in Fallout 4. I don't think it was a bad idea to put it in the game. Just maybe not spend as much time on it, or maybe spend more time on it, because it feels like it's in this weird middle ground for me. Caravan in New Vegas is a lot of fun. I actually agree with this. Caravan is actually pretty fun. I do enjoy that card game. I think it's a really cool and interesting card game. It's just very confusing when you first start playing, because the rules are just something that you have to read and then kind of visualize. And without playing the game, that can be a little bit difficult, as well as a lot of players I know could just skip right over that and not even realize that they still have the rules on them. That could be a little bit of an issue. Once you get the hang of it, though, it's not very difficult, especially if you just go with the classic build of throwing 6 10s, jacks, and kings into your deck, and then maybe 9s and 5s or something to fill out the rest of the deck. You should be good to go then. You're just trying to get to 26 or closest to 26 that you could in each pile, and then you just use kings to double up 10s or double up your opponent's cards so that they count for more, or you place jacks on them just to take them away. After War Gundam X, which is now free to watch on Tubi, is a perfectly valid place to take inspiration for Fallout from. The original developer shamelessly grabbed stuff from other post-apocalyptic fiction they could find, regardless of the era, and had anime been a bigger thing at the time, that show would have absolutely had ideas to pick from. That Fist of the North Star is a valid inspiration. Under this is considerably less controversial. Yeah, I would say so. I've never actually watched Gundam X or War Gundam X. I don't think I've actually seen any of the Gundam series, so I can't really speak on that. I have seen Fist of the North Star, though, and that is a post-apocalyptic anime, and there is a reference to that in Fallout New Vegas, where you get the Fist of the North RAR if you have the Wild Wasteland trait, and you make RAR's fist into the Deathclaw Gauntlet. There's actually a decent amount of inspiration from anime in Fallout. I mean, the cover picture of the Mojave Ranger with the 50 cal holding that one up is actually a direct reference to Jinro Wolf Brigade. And that's also what the Ranger armor was based off of, and the armor in that series does look really cool. As well as in Fallout, that's a 50 cal. In the actual series, it's a MG42, which we do kind of see in Fallout 76, I believe. Still haven't played 76, but I think that's appeared there. It also appeared in Fallout London, so that's really cool to see. So you could absolutely do that, and I don't think it would be all that strange to be taking it from series like that kind of go with post-apocalyptic series. I mean, you see this in other games too, all the FromSoft series being heavily inspired by Berserk, so, sure, it would fit in there. I don't know if this is really a hot take or not. The Mojave is the worst of the 3D Fallout maps. It's a flat brown desert, and only scripted events. Gets pretty dull after the 5th playthrough. Fallout New Vegas might have the most basic map out of the 3D Fallout games. Even out of the older games, it might still have the most basic map, because there are large spots where there's just nothing in it. I'm assuming that's mostly because the game was very rushed, so there's just not a whole lot to show there. Also, if you've ever been through, southern Nevada, there isn't a whole lot out there at points, so that kind of actually makes sense that there wouldn't be very much out there, because 3 has all of DC, which is very interesting to go through, although I'm very aware that DC and Las Vegas are not set up the same way at all. I've never been to DC, but I have been to Las Vegas quite a few times, and it's fairly easy to move around through. I imagine DC would be much more difficult to go through. Same thing goes with Fallout 4 in Boston, where it's I've never been to Boston either, but I imagine it would also be more densely packed than something like Las Vegas, which is, just out in the desert. Oh, I like this one. The garbage aesthetic is stupid. People are remaking society and have been active for years, but they can't take the trash out. This I kind of agree with, especially if it's already a very well-established town. The town has been up for forever. I'm not necessarily opposed to some of it, like Megaton I think is done actually pretty well in Fallout 3, where a lot of the buildings are kind of scrapped and put together, but you don't see garbage just laying around everywhere throughout the town. It's like the garbage has kind of been recycled or reused to make into like walls or buildings or something. But yeah, just having like random garbage everywhere with like nobody cleaning it up is very weird where people live, especially even more so if it's like in like a ranch or something. Like you just go to somebody's house and they just have garbage strewn all around the place. You think they would have it kind of organized for them, but maybe, I don't know. 76 had a crap launch, but now it's actually a good game. Haters be damned. Okay. I've never played 76. I haven't played it yet. I probably will sometime in the future, but I don't know when. I don't have any plans to play it right away. I've heard that it has gotten a whole lot better than what it was on release, though, so I'll just take your word for it. I don't really have too much to comment on that. I hate all the alien crap in every game that it's in. Takes me out of the game, if only for a minute. The aliens are weird to have in Fallout, and they are canonically in it, which is something that you can't really write out now. I guess you could if you really wanted to. But there is, like, at least some fan theories of, like, the aliens starting the Great War, Vault-Tec starting the Great War. There's a bunch of different things like that. Just depends. The aliens have been in the series since the very first Fallout, although in the very first couple Fallouts, the aliens played a very, very tiny role. And specifically in the first game, it was just a random encounter that you could find. So you had to have a high enough luck in order to find random encounters, and then you actually had to get the crashed alien ship. And I think in that one, it kind of made the most sense because it wasn't really impacting the story at all. It wasn't impacting any part of the series, really. You could go the entire game without seeing aliens. You could play the game multiple times without ever seeing the aliens. Then technically you don't even see the aliens. You find like the alien corpse and the alien blaster on it, as well as the crashed ship. So in that regard, it could easily be just played off as a one-off thing in the game. Nothing all that crazy. It did become more of a thing in like Fallout 3 since we had an entire DLC dedicated to it. We've got it like more in Fallout 4 with aliens showing up again. I mean, in New Vegas they show up, but you specifically need to have the Wild Wasteland perk, which makes the game a whole lot more crazy. So I think it fits better with that. Otherwise, they're not actually in the game either. So I think it depends on how the aliens are actually used. I think in like Fallout 1 and maybe like New Vegas would be the best options for this, where you don't really see them and they're more of a joke thing, and it's kind of obvious that they are because you have to specifically go out of your way to potentially find them. Whereas in like Fallout 3, they're actually a main part of the story, and it depends. I actually don't really mind Mothership Zeta. It is a cool looking DLC. I like the ship itself, but the aliens I kind of understand not really liking the most. Fallout 4 is incredibly overhated. I feel like people aren't willing to give the game all the credit for what it does right just because they don't like it as much as New Vegas. That is probably true. Fallout 4 does get more hate than something like New Vegas does. Fallout 4 sometimes gets more hate than quite a few of the games do, which is interesting because I don't think Fallout 4 is actually that bad of a game. In terms of like story, I think it doesn't really have that strong of a story, especially when compared to New Vegas, which would have been the previous entry to this, and characters as well. Fallout New Vegas has much better characters than 4. But it did do a lot of things better than Fallout New Vegas did, where the gunplay is far better than it was, and the overall gameplay, I think, is far better than New Vegas is. That could just be attributed to newer technology, newer advances in games, because when you play New Vegas, you can kind of feel like it plays like an older game. It plays kind of clunky now. It's not as modern. And like the same can be said about a lot of games from that time period. That's not really a fault of the game because that's just how games played at that time, but Fallout 4 does play better. I also do enjoy exploring the world of Fallout 4 more so than New Vegas, at least the active like wandering around, because it feels like Fallout 4 has a whole lot more areas that you can go to and a lot more variety of locations, whether you're actually out in the middle of nowhere, just finding whatever might be there, hunting down creatures and stuff, going through Boston, or going through, like, the Glowing Sea. Like, there's a lot more distinct areas where the Mojave can feel kind of the same-ish throughout it. There are different places that change, and I would still personally enjoy New Vegas more than 4, but 4 did do quite a few things right over New Vegas. I also really like how power armor feels in 4 and looks in 4, as well as quite a few other creatures. Like, I think the Deathclaw is like the coolest in 4. I don't think all of these are implemented very well, though. Like, power armor is way too strong, and it's way too common for you to be finding, as well as you just getting to use it right at the start. I don't really like that as compared to the other Fallout games. And like death claws are really cool looking in 4, but they're like the weakest that they've ever been in 4, where they feel like complete pushovers compared to every other Fallout game. So like it did some things correct, but I feel like it did a lot of things, yeah, you know, maybe not the best. Oh, legendary effects too. I didn't really care for in 4 because there's just way too many of them that are overpowered and make the game incredibly easy, where you can just rush certain weapons and beat the game incredibly easy. You could do that in the other Fallout games too, but at least in New Vegas, if you put the game to like the very hard difficulty, you could still die very easily in that, really, no matter how you were playing. So it had that going for it. Whereas in 4, if you put the game to survival, yeah, you're probably going to die a lot in the first couple hours of the game, and then as soon as you get a couple levels in you and you get a bit tankier, suddenly the game just goes from very difficult to incredibly easy, and it doesn't feel like there's any in between. I like this one. James from Fallout 3 was a crappy character and a crappy dad. He's not really fleshed out very much in Fallout 3. Most of what you get from him is mostly from the backstory, and he's not actually sticking around too long, and he kind of does throw you under the bus a couple of times. Not seemingly intentionally, like he's trying to be evil or anything, but just like that he's very narrow-minded. So I don't even necessarily disagree with this one. Oh, we got another one. Fallout 3/Fallout New Vegas power armor is better than Fallout 4/76 power armor. I like the sleek design and the power armor training. You actually have to work for it. I like the concept of power armor in 4 and 76, but I think the bulked up looks kind of hurt the design, and few of them end up looking like fat suits, especially the Hellfire, no offense. I do like the way that power armor was implemented more in Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, and even in the older games to some extent, although you could just wear power armor in the older games if you got them. Like, there was a pretty well-known skip that you could do in Fallout 2, which would get you, like, the Exo 2 armor that the Enclave has right at the very start. You can kind of do the same thing in, like, Fallout 3 if you rush Operation Anchorage. That's pretty well-known to where, like, you just run there at a very low level and you can complete it pretty quickly, get power armor, get the winterized power armor, although that's, you know, that's still out of the way. You still have to go through a whole DLC to do it. And if you're playing the base game, you would still need to get about halfway through the game to get power armor. So I think that does work better than just being able to have it right away, like in Fallout 4. Honest Hearts is a terrible DLC, and if not for Joshua, I'd put it in the bottom tier. Ooh, that might be a hot take. I feel like a lot of people put Honest Hearts at the lowest part of the New Vegas DLCs. It's either that or Dead Money, I hear a lot. And Dead Money is... It varies from person to person. Either it's like the worst of the DLCs or it's the best of the DLCs. Totally depends on what you're looking for there. Honest Hearts does have quite a few problems, I will say. Joshua does heavily carry it. I would say that too. Daniel honestly does a decent amount for it too, because he is a fairly interesting character, even though they don't give him very much to go on. There's not a whole lot of backstory there, so he could be more interesting. Joshua's definitely the best part of it. The map, though, I think is fantastic. Like, going to Zion is really fun, and the area, I think, is really good. The quests are a bit weak, though, so there's not a whole lot going on there. Most of the quests are just go to an area, pick up something. It's basically just a fetch quest, kill whatever's around there. There's not really much else to it. Same goes with the side quests. There's not really a whole lot to them either. You do have Randall Clark in Honest Hearts, though, and he is also one of the best characters in the game if you're willing to go and just read through all of his entries, because that would be really interesting to actually get a backstory for him, or to get, like, a small, short spin-off game of just his story. I think would be really cool. Oh, here's one. Fallout Tactics was a good game. I actually agree with this. Fallout Tactics is a good game. If you never played Fallout Tactics, I don't entirely blame you. You can get it through a couple services. It is found on Steam, although when I played it on Steam, I had to manually go in and change some of the files, mostly just for the screen resolution, because it didn't actually go to like 1920 by 1080, which is what my screen usually is. So you will have to change that, otherwise it would just keep crashing, so that's kind of annoying. I think it works right out the gate if you get it on GOG, but I'm not really sure. They tend to work better on GOG than on Steam, at least for older games. But Fallout Tactics is actually pretty fun. I really enjoy it, because it adds some new things to the game, like, well, a turn-based tactics system, or you can have it be a real-time tactics game, which is pretty interesting. You can control up to 6 people. The maps are actually really fun. It's probably the hardest of the Fallout games, just overall, because there's not a whole lot of ways where you can make it easier on yourself. There is a couple. There's some really big step-ups in difficulty and tactics as well, which I kind of enjoy. like the first time you meet super mutants, and super mutants are actually kind of terrifying in tactics because you're fighting a bunch of super mutants. They have all got like machine guns and stuff. They have a lot of health. They can take a lot of damage, and you really can't. But I would like heavily agree that Tactics is actually a pretty good game. It is a janky game though, I will say that too. Tactics controls weird. It feels weird to play, especially when you first start playing, because as far as I'm aware, there's not like really set up, well, there is set up keys for it, but it doesn't really tell you very much about that. It kind of goes over what the basics are if you play the tutorial of like how to move, how to shoot, hit percentages, how sneak works and stuff like that. But then there's also like other mechanics that it doesn't really go over, like how the cars really work, how you can interact with different things, how certain skills kind of work. So it is kind of vague in that regard. Fallout 76 is better than Fallout 4. I don't enjoy Fallout 4, and 76 is infinitely more enjoyable than Fallout 4, even as an RPG. Fallout 4 doesn't make sense as Nora, and I hate that. As Nate, at least, it explains why he would be able to use guns and power armor, but Nora is a lawyer and no combat experience, yet somehow she can solo all the gunners. There's no reason why the sole survivor does what they do, how they integrate into the Commonwealth, how they deal and communicate with others. The factions make no sense, the pacing is terrible, the entire game as an RPG is so bad that I can't enjoy it. Think about it, one day you're living as a lawyer and a housewife, and the next day you're living in the post-apocalyptic landscape where everyone and everything tries to kill you, and Nora is just, yep, alright, guess this is my life now, and integrates into the Commonwealth as if she knew how everything works. That's why I like New Vegas. The courier already belongs and has lived in the apocalyptic world, so it makes sense why the story takes place. Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm not really sure about 76. Again, I haven't really played it as opposed to 4. But yeah, the logic as Nora just playing in Fallout 4 is a little bit strange compared to Nate. Nate makes more sense that he would still be more capable of doing all these things, since it's like he was already established as a war veteran. He had already fought at Anchorage. It would make sense that he would have power armor training and he would know how to do that, and that he would know how to use these guns. Nora might know how to use, like, at least the guns. I wouldn't put that past it, because Nate very well could have taught her, or who knows what else happened in her backstory, since that's never fleshed out. Maybe she lived on a farm for a while and just learned that normally. So that wouldn't be all that strange. But the power armor part doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, because I doubt Nate would just be able to show her how that would work accurately enough, without power armor, because as far as we're aware, Nate doesn't just have a spare set of power armor laying around in the garage or anything like that. So yeah, there's that. Interacting with the people, you think there would be a whole lot more problems with that, just because like the Nate and Nora shouldn't really be used to the post-apocalyptic wasteland. And I do agree that like the courier makes a whole lot more sense. Same thing goes with like Fallout 2 with the Chosen One, where it's like, well, you guys have already been living out in the wasteland for who knows how long, your entire life at this point, probably. And it would make sense that you would kind of already know what's going on. The courier probably makes the most sense, because it's like, well, they travel around a whole bunch. They have probably talked to a lot of people. They probably know a lot of people in the wasteland, and they're used to living out here. The Chosen One, maybe not as much, since it's like you are a tribal in that. You mostly just know the tribe and you've been around there. So it is kind of pointed out that you're still kind of a fish out of water whenever you go to like any sort of major cities, like when you're in Reno or when you're in San Francisco or something. Here's an interesting one. Evil playthroughs are more fun to watch than actually do yourself. I can understand that, because you can make an evil playthrough a lot more fun through like editing. You can just cut right to the scenes and you can use it as comedic effect. So that does work a whole lot better in that regard. And then our very last one for today is stats don't matter, play whatever you want and whatever kills the best. I would agree with that. Stats don't really matter too much throughout most of the Fallout games. You can build your character however you would like. There is certainly good ways to build a character, like, for example, if you put all of your points into like crit chance and stuff and then you decided to go with an explosives build. Probably not the best thing to do, because generally explosives and crits don't really go together throughout the games. But so long as you're having a fun time building, then go for it. Certain builds do make more sense for other things that you want to do. It would make sense to be tanky for a melee or an unarmed build. But it would also make sense to be maybe sneaky with like a sniper build. Totally depends there. I don't think you should go for like the best optimization or potentially even the worst optimization. Just pick whichever one you find is fun and whichever way that you find to be the most fun. So totally agree with that one. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. This is some of the hot takes. We had a lot of comments on this one, so I might do a part 2 to this. If you'd like to see that, then feel free to tell me. And if you have any more hot takes, be sure to leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye, everybody.